was actually scribbling notes as you were talking, so always good ideas. Thanks so much for putting this on the agenda to the Newfoundland crew. That's really good. I always find I learn a lot in these discussions. We're on a pretty strict time frame, and there's no way in 15 minutes I can tell you comprehensively what we do with child youth engagement in New Brunswick in our advocacy. My presentation will basically just be an overview of what we do in regards to incorporating child and youth participation and engagement into our work. I'm going to speak really quickly. Normally I like to speak really slowly at the same pace that my brain functions, but I know that I wrote these notes and then I had to cut down 80% of it, and it's still too long. So I'm going to have to rush through it. Before talking about, basically I'm just going to give you that overview, and then a little bit of confession about where our office is. And I don't think we're much worse, certainly not better than others. And then I'd like to suggest an invitation for an ongoing project, a CCCY collaborative project around child and youth engagement, because I always find at these events, we have these informal discussions and we learn a lot from each other, and it would be nice to have some sort of formal structure for that, to figure out what we do with youth engagement, what are the best practices. Let's maybe develop a toolkit, but I'll make a pitch for that at the end, and then we can talk about that. But before I talk about what we do or how we do it, I'll just quickly, maybe it's just preaching to the converted, the reasons why we do it. In our office, we're all on the same page with regards to this. There are the human rights reasons, right? There's Article 12 of the UNCRC, and then there's also the right to freedom of expression and thought and association, and the right to access information, and of course Article 12 itself as a guiding principle to have the child's voice heard and given due weight in all matters that affect him or her. Is a way to interpret all the rights, and that's how we approach it. And then there are the practical reasons that we do what we do. We've all, I'm sure, have had stories. We all have stories where we've talked to a child or a youth, and they've said something to us that is just deeply impactful and exactly just cuts right to the heart of whatever this issue is that we're trying to look at. And I saw it on the panel yesterday with the youth. I was writing down notes because they were saying things so succinctly that spoke right to the heart, the crux of the matter. And sometimes, I get bogged down in all the convoluted details, but it makes our advocacy better. It makes it more efficient, frankly. And we know this over and over again. We see it. But the sad fact is that we sometimes lose sight of that in the logistics of trying to do our work with the resources that we have. We have money constraints. We have people constraints, human resources constraints. We have time constraints, priorities, and so it's always a constant shuffle, and it's difficult. But whenever we try to maximize child and youth engagement, we find that it helps our work. It also creates a better sense of belonging for children and youth, accomplishment, pride, autonomy, self-worth, all of these things that our work is supposed to be instilling or helping at least to facilitate, and a sense of control over their own lives when sometimes they don't have that. And that's a really amazing thing to see. And of course there's all the evidence from studies around how participation and engagement by children and youth will lower drug rates, alcohol usage rates, teen pregnancy, depression, all of these things. And involvement in the criminal justice system, etc. And then there are the big picture reasons. It builds more inclusive communities. It increases democratic participation in society generally. Better policy development, frankly. Anytime we can get government engaging with children and youth on these issues, better policy comes from it, better services come from it. We see it again and again. And better public spending decisions come from it. And I think probably better office decisions if you're talking about having youth vet your materials and right, yeah, absolutely, that should be happening because decisions can be made and then something big is missed. It happens all the time. So all these and more are reasons why we engage with children and youth. But in our office, the context is quite different from Alberta and Ontario, well, from everyone really. All of our offices are different. We have different mandates, of course. We have different populations. We have different situations. And in our office, we have 9 people. 90% of our budget is taken up with salary, I think, roughly. We're not actually getting rich with that 90%. None of us are incredibly wealthy. But that places real constraints on what we can do, right? Because engagement sometimes takes money. And so we do